It seems you did a really incredible job at Stripe and you were there for quite a while. Do you have any advice for succeeding at startups from your time there?
I would say a lot of what I learned was just trying to figure out how to fit in, right? And I think it's a lesson when you're early on in startups. I was 24 when I joined Stripe, right? So I was pretty early on in my career. And I think it's an easy lesson to just be like, okay, like this is an engineering driven company. Um, but I can be valuable. I have value to add here, but I also need to know how to operate with these people and like what language they speak and how to figure out how to um, ultimately speak their language and add value in their minds. And, I always thought about how I was perceived in the context of a company with like four non-technical people when I joined. Um, so I would say, at least if you're joining a company that is like engineering product, driven in some shape or form, um, I think I looked at it as like, it's my job to um, add value and for people to think I'm valuable. And so I want to spend time with people. I want to figure out how to speak their language. I want to understand the product really well, probably at a level of depth that people don't expect of me. Um, and so for me, I spent a lot of time just learning the product, getting to know the product really well, understanding the use cases for the product. When I felt like there was like a trend or something that I saw that was happening in the market or with feedback that I was hearing, it was something that like I wasn't quiet about. Like I would always like push and advocate for customers and for partners and those kinds of things. Um, and it was less about like my own personal opinions or like thoughts on strategy. It was more just like, how do I figure out how to be the voice of the customer? Which I think was really helpful. So I would say, in some part it was like getting as technical as I possibly could, like understanding the product as best I possibly could. Um, and then trying to be the best at one thing that I felt like I could be, which was like being voice of a partner or being voice of a customer. Um, and then working with those parties like incredibly well. And I felt like that was my strength in a lot of ways. Um, and then I think a lot of how you are perceived in a company is like it doesn't really have anything to do with how much work you do. And there was a certain point in my time at Stripe where like I learned that it's not always about like you hitting your number or producing the most or those kinds of things, but like how you do it and how you are perceived for the work that you produce. So I think there was a lot that we did that kind of very early on kind of got people educated on like what the function was. What is partnerships? How is this valuable? Right. Because like I learned very early on that like people didn't get it always. And so it also means something different at every company. Right. So I think there was just a lot of like education in terms of talking to people and explaining like, oh, I'm talking to this partner and here's how that's going. And here's what value that partner could add. And, and then over time, it's like this partner represents like X percentage of our overall business. And then people start to really get it. Right. So you have to like, work your way there. And I think a lot of what I learned over time was just like how to communicate effectively with people, depending on where they were coming from, like what the perspective was. If they were an engineer, if they weren't, and then kind of really developing that over time to like work on how I was perceived and how the function was perceived. Um, and then, hopefully also doing the job of like getting a lot done, um, and just executing a lot. So lastly, I would say there's no substitute for just hard work. And I think at 24, coming into a company, you have no connections, nobody knows you, you have no network to bring to the table, you have very little in the way of like skills or experience. So the only thing you have on your side is like your ability to just work hard and output a lot. And so for me, like I was at the office very late, lots of days. And I know there's a lot in terms of culture right now, where people don't want to talk about, oh, was it hard work that got you there or, hustle culture or like things like that. But yeah, like I worked really hard and I was in the office late at night, sitting next to engineers and working um, and accomplishing a lot from that through a lot of just like hard work and iteration. Because there wasn't a whole lot of mentorship. There's not a whole lot of like someone holding your hand through the process. And so you just have to like make mistakes, figure it out, learn from it, get better. And I think in a lot of ways that it like comes through with like more and more hard work over time. And now I get to reap the benefits of that, right? Now I have a network and I have connections and I have great people that I worked with over the years. And so I have that. And I also know how to work hard. So both of those things can add a lot of value over time.